Om Namo Bhagavate Ramakrishna. Om. Salutations to Bhagavan Ramakrishna. Householder disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, today we start to a new life, a deeply spiritual life. And her name was Rani Rashmoni. It was in the mid-1800s in Calcutta. And generally, women all over the world were kept away from the main activities of society. And this was true everywhere, especially in India, but we see this one woman dominating the social and the religious scene of that time with a piety, with a philanthropy, with the intelligence, with the deep managerial skills. She was, as I say, an able administrator. Being pious, she had decided to visit Varanasi. Varanasi is one of the holy cities in India. And because travel by road was extremely dangerous in those days also, there were no good roads. So the pilgrims who could afford, they would take a large flotilla of boats and they would sail upriver from Calcutta up to Benares. So she had decided on the expedition. And it says that there were 25 boats. Now these were not the small boats, or not even the big boats, what you could call as the trawlers, the size of a trawler, maybe with two sails. And we also had people rowing the oars. So there were 25 of such boats only carrying provisions for 6 months. It used to take a long time, maybe a month, who knows. And towards the evening, they used to go down to the edge of the river, camp out there for the night possibly, and then start the journey again. And saying there were 7 boats for food and other necessities, 1 for herself, 3 for her 3 daughters and their families, 2 for the guards, 2 for the servants, 4 for other relatives and friends, 2 for her estate officials, 1 for the doctor and his medicine, 1 for the washerman, 1 for 4 cows and 1 for fodder. Oh my God. It was a huge expedition and expensive, of course. Gathering these provisions, organizing everything it was difficult in those days. But she had everything ready, and they say on the night before she could depart for Varanasi, undertake the trip, she had a vision of the Divine Mother. And in the dream, in the vision, it's a vision. the Holy Mother says, Mother Kali says, you need not go to Varanasi. Install my image and offerings here. In this image, I shall be constantly present and shall ever accept your worship. Now, in this vision, she gets this command from the Divine Mother Kali, as Kali. There's another version saying that they had set out on the journey, and by the time from Calcutta, they reached Dakshineswar, which is not very far away. They had halted for the night, and there Rani Rashmani, she got the vision, the dream. Here she says it's a dream that you need not go further. You build a temple for me and install my image. So, however, she cancelled the pilgrimage. All the articles, food, etc., that was procured, she distributed amongst the poor and the Brahmins, and she then went about searching for the land to build a temple. Now, this temple, even today, as you sail down the river Ganges, it's so imposing. And she had spent about 650,000 rupees. I mean, I don't even want to calculate what's the cost of this. It'll run into millions in today's, you can say, exchange rate. Millions. And the construction took about 10 years. Now, this is a peculiar, you can say, belief. It's an old traditional belief that they say the western bank of the Ganges is considered even more sacred than the eastern bank. Both are banks, the same river, but they say that the western bank, in which, of course, Belur Math is situated, and Dakshineswar is on the situated on the eastern bank. So it was considered to be not so sacred, but then that place was kind of in the shape of a tortoise, and according to tantras, that is considered extremely auspicious for installing deities and for practicing spiritual disciplines. So, it is like that Kurma Devata. That is, it's a long story, but then it is auspicious to have spiritual practices there. Now, Rani Rashmani, she went about to procure that land, and we'll see later on, she had great difficulties because of social restrictions, etc., and people didn't want to sell it to her. There are many people who wouldn't want to sell it to her. But she had the money, she had the will. And so Rani Rashmani, she was born in 1793 in a small village called Kona, that is upstream from the river of, from Calcutta, on the same banks of the Ganges. And it's on the same side as Dakshineswar, the temple up there. Her name was Rashmani. But looking at her, she was a beautiful child and intelligent. Her mother used to call her Rani. Rani means queen. And that name stuck. And not only stuck at home, but the entire society then used to acknowledge her as queen. Rani Rashmoni. As I said, because of a great philanthropic and a great compassionate heart. Her mother was Rampriya Dasi and her father Hare Krishna Das. They were both pious and simple, and they were both small land owners, and they sustained their life through agricultural produce. He also was a kind of a roofer. He used to mend people's roofs, repair, and then that supplemented his meager income. Growing up in those areas, now the Ganges itself has brought down silt from millennia down. That's a very fertile, you can say, plain. And the whole plains that is called the Indo-Gangetic plain is nothing but the silt that has been brought down by this great river. And this river has been flowing for thousands and thousands of years. So that soil was very, very fertile. However, there were other difficulties like pest and all the other things where you can see entire crops at times used to get destroyed. So because they were poor, they used to live rather like, from hand to mouth. When Rashmani was very young, she carried food to the field for her father, helped her mother with the household work, picked vegetables in the garden like poor children, and was never demanding. She was never heard to say, I cannot. Her favorite pastime was, like all girls, swinging on hammocks, etc., which her father had made for her. Her father, Hare Krishna Das, though he was the rustic type and he was a farmer, yet he had learned to read and write. And in the evenings, he used to sit at home and he used to tell the great, you can say, tales in the Ramayana and Mahabharata. And not only the family members used to sit down and listen, you would read some of the old mythological literature, but other villagers also came and sat behind, because that was how people spend the evening, in worship, in listening to devotional songs or singing devotional songs, reading from the scriptures, etc. Nowadays, in India, that old traditions have been completely swamped. There are remnants in all places, because modern life and modern society has simply veered away from all those, you can say, traditional ways of life. I remember we used to, in the evening, what do you do? We now had televisions, and we had, in the evening, what do? Go to the temple and do Harinam, go and pray, go and meditate. So that was the evening, and whole day they used to work, and then but evening they used to spend their evenings in meditation and hearing the sacred scriptures. This girl, Rani Rashmani, also used to listen to these old stories, these tales of these great heroes and heroines in the past, and her imagination used to kind of recapture that beauty and that grandeur of those tales. She grew up in a very orthodox Vaishnava family. And before you do your spiritual practices amongst the Vaishnavas, that is the worshippers of Vishnu are called Vaishnavas, they had to put those marks, and they had put all the tulsi beads, etc., and mark them with their sandal paste. And then they used to perform their spiritual practices. That was more or less mandatory. for all spiritual practice. So she also used to, she was little, and she also used to, you put all those marks on her, religious marks, of course. So according to the mark, it's called a tilak, we will know what sect the person belongs to and what deity the person worships. Nowadays we just put a kind of tilak there. But that was, even today in many places, you will find that you can identify the practitioner of a particular religion with a particular deity according to the marks. So she used to do that, and she used to also paint her face also with those religious marks, and she used to try to perform that meditation and japa, etc. So the seeds of religion were planted at a very young age in her, listening to these spiritual stories, imitating worship, putting on these religious marks, etc. So the biographer says she had spontaneous faith in God. This is very rare to have spontaneous. People say, oh, I have faith in God. Yeah. How much? It's only when you are in crisis, when you're in troubles and all, then you start running about and seeing things. To have spontaneous faith in God and love for God from a young age is truly a gift of God. Because as the Bhagavad Gita also says, the person who has faith attains knowledge. Shraddhavan labhate jnanam. Yeah. Because, what happens is, doubts are constantly cropping in our mind. When you look around and you see, is this world a handiwork of God or something like that? We see everything as undivine. And this faith that you have in God will keep you on a kind of an even keel. You'll never be beset with doubts. Modern people have got these doubts. If there's a God, what's the nature of that God, and where and what is he or she doing? So this was her, you can say, equipment to later, as we see, how devoted she had become to Kali. And not only that, she was, in a way, instrumental in doing Kali's will. She had become a perfect instrument. So she had two brothers, and an aunt also used to live with them. So as they were growing up, though she was very young, even when she was 7, she looked much older. And because of her stature, you could see that, the morning shows the day. She had that kind of stature, that kind of look about her, that of future greatness. You can see this in some children. And if you don't see it there early, the chances are that that person will become great are less. Greatness is kind of imprinted in people when they are still young. So because they used to live on the banks of the Ganges. The Ganges became a place where you go to bathe, and like all people, children especially, they will swim, etc. and all. And that was considered a swim and a bath and a holy bath and everything all together. That was a great fun. So one time she was and they always used to go with companions, other girls and all. So they were having bath there in those ghats, the landing steps. There were steps that led to the edge of the river. So she was having a bath there, and unknown to her, there were some boats anchored a little distance away. That place is called a Triveni. So it's a very sacred, you can say, place where the Ganges is met by two other rivers. And people used to go there, and like in Prayagraj, what was called Allahabad, the Triveni, the three strands, the three braids, that is considered especially auspicious for sacred baths. So people used to go there, and there were some boats, and it looked like that they belonged to the rich people. So there were some people in it, and they were observing the group of these people who were bathing there, and they noticed this girl. Some of the boats belonged to Rajchandra Das. Rajchandra Das was, as we will see, he had inherited a large estate from his father, Pritaram Das. When I was in Calcutta for some years, we used to take a bus to Belur Math, and I used to wonder, there was a bus stop called Jan Bazar. And I had not read extensively this literature. Jan Bazar, just another bus stop. And in India, if you know, the conductors will keep on yelling the names of the stops. The people will alight or get it. Of course, one day I did get the opportunity to go inside, and I was struck by that, you can see, huge structure. It still exists, of course. So this Rajchandra Das, you can say, and he had inherited all that great estates and money, etc., from Pritaram Das. Pritaram Das had started as a very humble, you can say, worker, working for as an agent for some of the British, you can say, firms. Rajchandra himself had married 2 times, and both his wives had passed away. His father was insistent that he remarry again. One of his brothers had died young. So Pritaram, the father, was worried that his son, Rajchandra, wasn't interested, but he had to have children who will kind of look after all these things. The people are more interested in who is going to inherit all that money. They were rich by those standards, extremely rich. And we will see later how the family of Ramakrishna and how this family of the Rajchandra and Rani Rashmani, they kind of, they interacted at a very deeply spiritual level. Sri Ramakrishna's family, especially Ram Kumar. Ram Kumar was Sri Ramakrishna's elder brother, and he was actually instrumental in getting everything started. The temple was built, but then after the temple is built, who is going to perform the worship? The priest and the formalities to be done are done by someone else. And they had to have a family to look after this, to hire staff, because in those days, the Brahmins will not work for anyone else other than Brahmins. They will not eat from anyone else other than Brahmins. So there was a great difficulty to get good priests. So we will see later how Ram Kumar had solved all these sticky social problems. And they were extremely, you can say, happy about it, that this person had come at the right time. Ram Kumar at that time, he was in Calcutta, but he was teaching Sanskrit and some of these scriptures to students. He himself being a Pandit, saying that was the only thing he knew, and worship. But he knew astrology, and he knew he had some powers to predict the future. And apart from other things. So this was how both the families had interacted. When Pritaram saw that girl, Rani Rashmani, there, so with his permission, his friends, his staff maybe, they said, could we go and approach the girl's family? You could marry her. And he agreed, and they had gone, and Hare Krishna Das was glad, because being poor and his daughter getting married to a very wealthy person was welcome. So they were married there in 1753. And later on, we had, we're not sure, 1804, sorry, that was the mistake. 1804-5, they were married. Rajchandra himself had expanded the estate and the wealth of this family. We will see why all these things is necessary, this kind of laying the groundwork. Because later on, we find that they had undertaken many philanthropic activities. They had challenged even the colonial powers then. And, every colonial power has this kind of, you can say, exploitive tendency to exploit as much of it. And she stood her ground in many places. So she had, as I say, common sense, tactfulness, humility, and a tremendous, you can say, intelligence. Though she wasn't really educated, they used to marry young, and education was left to be completed after you got married. And after you got married, then you are busy with hundreds of things. But she was never proud or haughty. She was that simple. That when you come into wealth, you change, your personality changes, your body language changes, your language changes, everything changes. But she still retained her old village simplicity. She supervised all work, all household activity. She performed worship, and she performed her spiritual practices. She was that same girl, untouched by all this kind of wealth, etc. So whenever they used to go to a pilgrimage and they found some temples or something that needed repair, they used to immediately donate money for that. At times when some parts of the land were devastated by floods, they used to go and do relief work, send money to do relief work. And she used to feed the afflicted, take care of them. In 1823, her father died. And when she went to perform certain religious rites in connection with the funeral, she saw the terrible, you can say, the neglect of these bathing ghats. You see, what happens is the people who are ruling, the British, they're supposed to do all these repairs, roads, etc. Because they are supposed to look after the civil infrastructure and everything else also. They had completely neglected everything. And that's the reason why, people had to depend on such philanthropic activities of these people like Rani Rashmoni to build roads, to construct bathing ghats, to repair old temples, etc. Yes, it was, in those days, it was not easy. Kind of. Lord Bentinck was the Governor General of India, and to start any construction work, etc., you had to ask the colonial powers. So Lord Bentinck was first a general in Fort William. That fort is now, of course, still existing. We remember Sri Ramakrishna in his gospel, he goes to visit that fort. So that's a large part of what is now Calcutta proper. So Lord Bentinck, he had given permission to Rajchandra and Rani Rashmoni to construct some of the bathing ghats and roads, etc. And also, there was another road, which is a famous road, which never struck me as that also road was constructed by them. It was called a Babu Ghat. There was that road leading to a ghat. Ghat in the sense, as I say, it's a place where there are steps built to go down to the banks of the river Ganga. Rajchandra had one strong trait in his character: truthfulness. And so did Rani Rashmoni also. So they used to, wherever there was a kind of a paucity of water, drinking water, they used to dig wells or ponds, etc. They used to cut channels to facilitate trade for the local trade. Both of them Rani Rashmoni had 4 daughters: Padmamani, Kumari, Karunamai, and Jagadamba. So we had seen that one of them later died. So Karunamai had died. 3 remained. They trained their daughters in the traditional Hindu, we can say, manners and customs, in spite of being surrounded by affluence and Western. So that house that was built, that is now, it's called Jan Bazar. At that time, it cost about 2 million rupees. And one morning, say Rajchandra was taking a kind of siesta when a monk came, robust-looking monk with matted hair. They tried to kind of ignore this monk first, but he entered that house, and when Rajchandra was informed that this monk has come, so the monk said he gave him a statue of Rama, Raghunatha, and says that I want you to worship this, and on my way back I will come and inquire about it. When Rajchandra wanted to return the kind of kindness with some money, he said, no, I'm not a beggar monk. So that image of Raghunath was installed. When I visited, I couldn't identify which was that shrine. There are many shrines in that place. So it was difficult for me to identify which was the original statue. In 1836, when Rajchandra was traveling some place in his carriage, he suffered a stroke and died. Not immediately, he was brought to the house at Jan Bazar. The best medical treatment, the best doctors were called in, but it was of no avail. He was 53. So he died in June 1836. We remember 1836 is the year Sri Ramakrishna is born. So Rashmani, stricken with grief, they say that she lay on the floor for 3 days without food or water. After 3 days, she gets up from the floor, she performs those rituals according to the injunctions of the scriptures, and additionally, she weighed herself with silver coins and had those coins distributed amongst the Brahmins, etc. So even in those days, she also fed the poor, gave them gifts, and at the conclusion of the ceremony, she gave the monk who had given the image of Raghunath came. So to see what happened, and then the monk was told that he has just passed away, and she wanted to offer him some expensive gifts. He's saying, "No, I'm not interested. Give me a monk's water pot and a blanket." And Rani Rashmoni was so struck, the monk's non-attachment, etc. Here it is said, later this image of Raghunath was stolen from the shrine. There it was. No wonder I couldn't find it. Now, she was now managing this vast estates of hers. Apart from estates, she had these other businesses also. She was looking after that. Mathurnath Bishwas. Now we are seeing how things are. Mathurnath Bishwas was one of her son-in-laws. She had 4 daughters. One had died, Karunamayi. So he was married to Karunamayi, the 3rd daughter. But she was reluctant to see him off because the wife dies and the husband kind of drifts away from the main family. So she had the 4th daughter, Jagadamba, marry him. So he became part of the family, and he was a self-made man, very intelligent. Mathur Babu was, as Sri Ramakrishna says, one of his main suppliers, and Mother Kali had shown him that these are 4 suppliers, Mathur Babu one of them. And he used to treat Sri Ramakrishna as his own father, and he was there always with Sri Ramakrishna. In fact, it was Mathur Babu's keen intelligence that, you can say, earmarked Sri Ramakrishna as a priest, and he said that this person's worship of Kali will soon awaken the deity when he saw him worship. So Mathur Babu was, as I say, in the Great Master, that is the Divine Play of Sri Ramakrishna, a whole chapter on Sri Ramakrishna and Mathur Babu. And that was a wonderful combination. Sri Ramakrishna also, as we know in his biography, had visited this house, Jan Bazar, during the Durga Puja. So he was also very versed in English. That is very important in those days. So Mathur Babu helped her manage these vast estates. Like saying, there was one incident where she had to recover money from another rich person. And that person was Prince Dwarkanath Tagore, who was the grandfather of Rabindranath Tagore. And they were also rich, I say. So he had come to Rani Rashmoni because her husband had died and there was no one to look after the estate. So he said, I could manage your estate. And she says, well, you can, but see, my husband has passed away and things are in a disarray. I don't know how much money has been given as loans to people, because he was very liberal and he kept on giving money to all the people. So, but I also remember him telling me that he had loaned some money to you, and that prince had said yes. he had loaned. But I would like to be a manager and manage your estate. So, and then in those days, it was 200,000 rupees that money was loaned to this prince. So she says, well, if you pay me back, then let us see what we can do about it. So he never had ready cash. So he sold one of the estates to her, told her that this was worth the money that was loaned to him. And once she received all that, got all the deeds and everything done, said, you see, now my son-in-law is there, Mathur Babu, he will look after it. So then Dwarkanath, Prince Dwarkanath, he understood. This is a very intelligent and shrewd woman. He thought he could go and manipulate her, but she was one step ahead of everything. Okay, we stop here for now and we'll take the next part of this. So the next part becomes interesting because then we'll see how she was, the interaction between Ramakrishna's family, his brother and Ramakrishna was kind of enhanced during these days, how and how the temple, etc., and how the worship came into being. Nivedita writes, she says, humanly speaking, without the temple of Dakshineswar, there would have been no Ramakrishna. Without Ramakrishna, no Vivekananda. And without Vivekananda, no Western mission. So that was it. So this was, Dakshineswar became the playground of the Divine Mother Kali. Because Sri Ramakrishna used to hear her anklets, we had the jingling anklets he used to wear, to run up the temple stairs, go up to the spires, come down. He saw the Divine Mother there present in that entire temple complex. That has become a kind of a great pilgrimage place. So she was responsible for building this great temple. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Okay. The questions, did Rani Rashmoni know how to read? What level of regular education did she get? I am sure she had learned how to read, because being intelligent, she must have had the rudimentary education. And well, what level of regular education did she have? She had no level of regular. In the whole of that, you can say, district, what is called county, as you say, there were just one or two schools. And only much later on, there was a college for women. There was no, women's education was completely neglected. So, why? Well, that's advantages for the colonial powers. You see, keep the people ignorant and they could be exploited. It's very easy to exploit such people. So what happens is as you can say, as a father had learned to read and write, like in the case of Holy Mother, she had learned to read and write. So possible. We'll say whether we finish a primary school or high school or college, no. That was simply out of the question, because there was no school or college for women. No, there were not many schools only for men also. Why women? Okay, I think that's the. Do you have any questions here? Then we can to make an announcement. There's no Sunday. There will be a talk, and since it is going to be 2nd of June, 2nd of July, which is an auspicious day, because the next day is the Guru Purnima. So the talk will be on who and what is a Guru. Monday, 3rd, Zoom meeting is meet and greet the Guru. So Swami Bhaskarananda will meet and greet his devotees and disciples at 7 p.m. 4th of July. Happy 4th of July. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.